Hi everyone, I'd like to demo some software for you that I've been working on called Atlas. Atlas is supposed to provide a way to organize or a means to organize your research program, alternative to the usual practice of having a bunch of LaTeX documents scattered around your computer, and each one a little too bulky and full of too many ideas to be properly useful. Instead, Atlas is supposed to furnish you with the notion of a lightweight LaTeX document, and it keeps track of all of these things and stores them for you in the structure of a directed graph. So here, this is supposed to be a pictorial representation of the kind of thing that I mean. Each node, each one of these circles, represents one such lightweight idea. And so each contains a little bit of text involving like the idea, maybe a solution to it. And then each of these, like the nodes are structured together in a hierarchical way. So this is some like big parent idea, and then it has some delegate ideas down here. And those ideas have delegates of their own and so on. And then additionally, so this node is supposed to belong to some other collection of ideas, some other project. But as you're thinking about the first project, you strike across something which reminds you of project number 2. And you would like not to forget about this connection. And so you can, the software supports building like cross-project connections that don't actually like enforce like parent-child behavior. And then additionally, the last kind of relationship that you can have with a node is that you want to work on it with other people. You want to like have some collaborative project. The software provides a couple of different ways that you can go about doing this. The most prominent one I think is going to be called workspaces. So that's what this glow is supposed to represent. If you and your friends have an idea that you want to work on together, then you can construct a workspace and throw the node into it. And then any child nodes that belong to that node or which they create and attach to that node are then visible to everyone involved in the workspace. And you can edit and change their structure and then eventually like come up with a solution to your question. There's also a notion of non-collaborative sharing, which doesn't really lend itself to pictorial representation, where instead of like wanting to work on a project with someone, you just have an idea written down that you want to show them. In a way that you can like update it for later. And so there's a sort of non-collaborative sharing mechanism as well, which might not get demoed here. So this is the concept, and in fact there is a server running software which does this at atlas.chromatopia.org. I've set up a demo user. It's demo@demo.com with password demo. You can check it out afterwards, or you can construct your own account. When you first log in, you see a blank space, and you can construct your first node by clicking the New Bulb button. And so here, this is supposed to be one of these lightweight documents. If I select it, then it expands to show me the actual contents of the document. And the document at present, because we just constructed it, just has the default title and then no body. But maybe like the title is where you would put some kind of summary, and then in the body, you would say something like, I want to think about Stokes' theorem, which uses form omega on a manifold big omega. It states that the integral over the boundary agrees with the integral of the derivative on the bulk. And if I click save, then that information is stored remotely, so I can access it from anywhere. I personally, demo@demo.com, can access it anywhere. And the math gets rendered out using mathjax. This also updates in real time, so that other pane function. So there are these buttons down here which flip back and forth between like what data gets displayed from the node in front of you. And this the preview pane actually updates in real time, more or less. So here's a recent edition. You can see how it renders by clicking over and waiting a moment. There it is. Some of the other things, the fourth panel just displays sort of excess information. And the third panel, so if you have a bunch of nodes that are grouped together in a project, there are like commonly macros which are reused like through the child nodes. So for instance, if I know that all of my children are going to care about the integers, then I can define once and for all the integers. So flip back over, then sure enough, it knows what the integers are. So there's a lightweight document. And if I click New Bulb again, then you can see another document down here. And supposing that I want to make this one into a child, then I can click this possession button. And when I click it, now this arrow is supposed to indicate that this node is child at this one. The software tries to automatically lay out the graph, which sometimes works great and sometimes doesn't. There's this button called jostle. You can see these little motion lines, which will force the program to relay out the graph in case something like that happens where you can't see the title. And so if I click this and select it, then I travel to the child node. The child again starts its life as a blank slate. Almost, it remembers the preamble from all of its parents. So the preambles actually get chained together as you go further and further down the list. So I'm a child node, but I learned what the integers are from my parents. Sure enough, knows what the integers are. This thing in the corner gives you a history of the nodes that you visited before this one. And so I can jump back to the parent node by clicking that button. And then I can release my child node. I can orphan it by clicking the depossess button. You can see that it just sort of fades into the darkness. Here, this is supposed, so if you don't actually want to like browse through this graph in this graphical way, then there's also a text-based way to do it. This gives you sort of a directory listing of all the nodes without like direct parents. They all sort of sit in this top-level workspace called top level. And so if I click child node, then child node reappears, and I can navigate to it by clicking on it. But now that it doesn't know it doesn't have a parent, it's also forgotten what the integers are. I can also, here's the other node again. So there are also these buttons which are supposed to build these non-hierarchical links between projects. So for instance, if I click this one and this, then now node summary does not become a child of this project, but if I navigate to this node afresh, then node summary will still appear. And so I can remember that whatever project is like or pertinent to this node also has something to do with this one. And there's some other buttons down here like this one, but they're not very impressive in this tiny workspace where I started with nothing. And so instead I'm going to log out and log in as myself. The program picks a random place to start. This isn't the last thing that I was thinking about, but it is a thing that I was supposed to be thinking about. And you can see down here that I have several things written into the program. So these items up top, so together with top level, correspond to sort of the workspaces that I have attached to this user. And then down here below the line, these are all lightweight documents, like top level lightweight documents, which only I have access to. They're not shared amongst any crowd. There's a search feature, so I can search for all of the nodes I've ever thought about. I see that this has something to do with box lines, and I can search for all the nodes that I've thought about that ever have had something to do with box lines. And this searches both the titles and the bodies of the text. So here's some things. One of the things you'll notice about this is that a couple of these nodes have little glows around them, little like vague blue impressions. And those two nodes belong to workspaces. So those two things are shared collaboratively with somebody else. In fact, so there's this clear button, which cleans up your workspace and just displays the stuff that's directly relevant to this. In fact, this button is supposed to drop in all of the nodes which belong to a particular workspace. So you can see all of the nodes that belong to my top level, for instance. Or you can see all of the nodes that belong to a particular workspace, like this one. Okay. So the idea is that workspaces are supposed to be places where you can share nodes with other users. So if you click down here on Manage Workspaces, then here's a list of the workspaces which I'm involved with. And I'll construct a new one, maybe proof of the Riemann hypothesis. which I'll share. Ooh, that was dangerous. Which I'll share with my demo user. There, great. So here's some workspace that I have access to and which the demo user has access to. If I jump back here, then I'll take this node. I don't know what it's doing here. And I'll move it over into proof of the Riemann hypothesis. So thoughts about zeta functions. I have a lot of deep thoughts about zeta functions. Here they are. And now, if I were to log out, so this node is supposed to belong to the workspace proof of the Riemann hypothesis. And so if I log out and log back in as my demo user, then the demo user still remembers the nodes that it was thinking about, the child node and its parent, or its once parent. But if I get them out of the way, then you can see that it also knows now about the workspace proof of the Riemann hypothesis. If I click and click, then that drops my node in. And now I can see this text, but more than that, I can modify it. Here's some counter thoughts. And if I log back in as Eric, I'll see this as well. So you can also add in new nodes like this, and any node that you take that belongs as a child to a node in a workspace automatically inherits the status of being in that workspace. So this one belongs to proof of the Riemann hypothesis, and this child also sort of indirectly it belongs to proof of the Riemann hypothesis. So if I log back in as myself, then you can see here's this node that the demo user created. And those are the main features of this program. So it's there are clearly several things that are missing. The program's a little bare bones at the moment, but I think that already it's in a complete enough state to be useful to a broader audience than just me and my office mates. And so I invite you to give it a spin, register for an account, dump your research thoughts into here, and see what you can make of them. So I mean, the thing that's most valuable about this for me is that I have an unfortunate tendency to hear someone smart say something really interesting and promise myself that I'm going to think about this, and then a month goes by and I've totally forgotten that the event ever happened, and it's lost forever. And so the real goal of this project or of this program is to remember veins of research that maybe you're not taking an active interest in, but which you don't want to forget about for later. I think that this could be really useful to a lot of people. Give it a spin, atlas.chromatopia.org. Thanks a bunch.